Me, I'm different. I just have a different constitution, I have a different brain, I have a different heart, I have a different, I get tiger blood, man.
To admit that I am, in fact, HIV positive. What people forget is that that's money they're taking from my children. They think it's just me, but I got 5 kids and a granddaughter.
Charlie Sheen once had everything Hollywood could offer. To millions, he seemed untouchable. But behind the blockbuster films, record-breaking sitcom, and larger-than-life persona was a darker story unfolding in plain sight. His troubles with addiction, arrests, public feuds, financial collapse, a shocking HIV diagnosis, and one of the most unforgettable celebrity meltdowns ever captured by the media would soon catch up with him. Now, at 60, the tragedy of Charlie Sheen is beyond heartbreaking. But was it unavoidable? Was this meltdown inevitable? Could things have gone differently? Well, to make sense of it all, we need to start from the very beginning. The boy who was born into Hollywood. As messy as it got over the years, it all began with one of Hollywood's most respected acting families. Born Carlos Irwin Estevez on September 3, 1965, in New York City, he was the youngest son of actor Martin Sheen and artist Janet Templeton. At the time, Martin was still fighting for steady work. When the family eventually settled in Malibu, California, the future star spent countless hours making Super 8 films with his older brother, Emilio Estevez, and neighborhood friends who would later become household names themselves, including Rob Lowe and Sean Penn. Long before they were celebrities, they were simply ambitious teenagers experimenting with cameras, fake explosions, and homemade scripts. But even as a teenager, Charlie wanted to carve out his own identity. Rather than pursuing a traditional education, he devoted himself almost entirely to acting, eventually dropping the family surname Estevez in favor of Sheen, borrowing the stage name his father had adopted decades earlier. This marked the beginning of an entirely separate Hollywood career, and it would soon eclipse even his father's early success. That breakthrough arrived astonishingly fast. At just 20 years old, Charlie landed the lead role of Chris Taylor in Oliver Stone's Vietnam epic Platoon, filmed under grueling jungle conditions in the Philippines. Stone famously pushed his cast through military-style training to simulate the exhaustion and psychological strain experienced by American soldiers. The demanding production forged performances that critics praised for their authenticity, and Charlie's restrained portrayal of an idealistic young recruit caught Hollywood's attention immediately. When Platoon won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1987, Charlie Sheen had become the face of one of the most important American films of the decade. From here, his momentum accelerated. Later that same year, Oliver Stone cast him opposite Michael Douglas in Wall Street, where Charlie played Bud Fox, an ambitious stockbroker seduced by wealth and power under the influence of Douglas's unforgettable Gordon Gekko. The film became a cultural landmark, with the phrase, "greed is good," entering popular vocabulary almost instantly. Looking back, many observers have noted the irony that Bud Fox's struggle with temptation and excess would later mirror aspects of Charlie Sheen's own public life. By the late 1980s, Charlie had become one of the industry's most bankable young stars. He followed Wall Street with a string of successful films: Young Guns, Major League, Navy SEALs, Men at Work, and later, the wildly successful comedy Hot Shots. Yet even as his professional reputation continued to grow, warning signs were beginning to emerge away from movie sets. However, for the time, the illusion stood firm. The best was yet to come. The highest-paid man on television. When Charlie Sheen accepted the role of Charlie Harper in 2.5 Men in 2003, few could have predicted he was about to become the most valuable actor in television. Created by Chuck Lorre and Lee Aronson, the CBS sitcom followed two brothers sharing a Malibu beach house, with Sheen playing a wealthy bachelor whose life revolved around expensive cars, beautiful women, and avoiding responsibility. It was a character audiences found irresistibly entertaining, partly because it never felt entirely fictional. Charlie Harper looked, talked, and lived so much like Charlie Sheen that viewers often joked he was simply playing himself. And America could not get enough. Within only a few seasons, 2.5 Men had become one of the most watched sitcoms on television, regularly attracting nearly 30 million viewers across original broadcasts and delayed viewing during its peak years. Alongside co-stars John Cryer and Angus T. Jones, Sheen helped transform what seemed like a simple family comedy into a cultural phenomenon. The show dominated Monday nights, generated enormous syndication revenue, and became one of the most profitable sitcoms ever produced. Critics were sometimes divided over its humor, but viewers remained remarkably loyal. Success on that scale translated into staggering wealth. Sheen secured salary increases that shattered television records. By the later seasons, he was earning around $1,800,000 per episode. His annual earnings climbed into the tens of millions long before syndication profits and endorsements were even considered. Hollywood had seen wealthy television stars before, but never quite like this. Executives considered him indispensable. CBS had one of the biggest hits in America, and virtually everyone involved had a financial incentive to keep the machine running. Ironically, the very quality that made the series successful also made it unusually dangerous. Charlie Harper's endless drinking, gambling, womanizing, and refusal to grow up mirrored Sheen's carefully cultivated public image so closely that many fans stopped distinguishing between fiction and reality. Some television critics argued that the sitcom functioned almost like a weekly extension of the tabloids, inviting audiences to laugh with Charlie Sheen rather than judge him. Others believed the show merely exaggerated a personality he already possessed. Either way, every magazine cover, paparazzi photograph, and nightclub appearance reinforced the illusion that Charlie Harper and Charlie Sheen were essentially the same person. For years, that illusion made the sitcom feel authentic, but not forever. Addiction, arrests, escorts, and public scandals. Long before Charlie Sheen's spectacular public collapse became international entertainment, the warning signs had been accumulating for decades. Back in 1990, Sheen accidentally shot his fiancée, actress Kelly Preston, in the arm at his California home after a handgun discharged. She later described it as an accident, and no criminal charges were filed. But the bizarre incident attracted enormous media attention and marked the first time many Americans associated Charlie Sheen with controversy rather than acting. Not long afterward, reports of heavy drinking and use of controlled substances became increasingly common in entertainment journalism. By the middle of the decade, rehabilitation programs had already become a recurring feature of his life. In 1995, Hollywood Madam Heidi Fleiss found herself at the center of a criminal investigation involving a high-profile escort ring that allegedly catered to wealthy clients throughout Los Angeles. During court proceedings, Charlie Sheen testified under oath that he had spent approximately $50,000 on escorts supplied through Fleiss's operation. Only months later, the scandals became even more personal. In 1996, Sheen pleaded no contest to misdemeanor battery after assaulting his then-girlfriend, Brittany Ashland, inside his California home. Ashland later filed a civil lawsuit describing serious physical injuries, and the case was eventually settled. Substance abuse, clearly, was no longer simply affecting Charlie Sheen himself, but was beginning to impact the people closest to him. Some thought that the legal consequences might finally force lasting change. Instead, the pattern continued. Ironically, the very years in which his career reached unprecedented heights also produced increasingly frequent trips to rehabilitation. Throughout the late 1990s and into the 2000s, Sheen entered multiple treatment facilities. Each return to work was accompanied by optimistic statements that he had regained control, yet the cycle repeatedly resurfaced. Producers continued hiring him because Despite his personal struggles, he often arrived on set prepared, knew his lines, and delivered strong performances. That contradiction fascinated Hollywood. How could someone whose personal life appeared to be spiraling continue functioning so effectively before the cameras? The illusion of control finally began. Charlie married actress Denise Richards in June of 2002, and together they welcomed daughters Sam, born in March of 2004, and Lola, born in June of 2005. Yet their marriage rapidly deteriorated under relentless media attention, allegations of substance abuse, and bitter legal disputes. Richards filed for divorce while pregnant with their second daughter. The cycle soon repeated itself. In May of 2008, Sheen married real estate investor Brooke Mueller, and in March of 2009, they welcomed twin sons Bob and Max. This could have been a new chapter. But then, on Christmas Day, 2009, police in Aspen, Colorado, arrested Sheen after Mueller accused him of threatening her during an argument while the couple was on holiday. He ultimately pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault as part of a plea agreement that required probation, rehabilitation, and anger management classes. The arrest dominated headlines, particularly because it occurred while Two and a Half Men remained one of America's biggest television successes.
Charlie Sheen spent the better part of Christmas Day in a Colorado jail cell. Here's his mugshot.
Less than a year later, New York City police responded to the luxurious Plaza Hotel after reports that Sheen had caused extensive damage to his suite during what authorities described as an alcohol and cocaine-fueled incident. Furniture was overturned, property was destroyed, and a frightened companion reportedly locked herself inside a bathroom before calling for help. Sheen was taken to a hospital for evaluation, while hotel staff assessed thousands of dollars in damages. Meanwhile, his personal relationships were unraveling just as rapidly. Expensive settlements, court appearances, and mounting legal fees steadily chipped away at the enormous fortune he had accumulated from television. Yet, remarkably, throughout nearly all of these scandals, Charlie continued reporting to work on Two and a Half Men, memorizing scripts, delivering performances, and helping produce one of the most successful sitcoms in television history. To some colleagues, it demonstrated astonishing professionalism. To others, it simply showed how long extraordinary talent and extraordinary wealth could postpone the inevitable. Eventually, however, even Charlie Sheen's seemingly limitless success would no longer be enough. Within months, the illusion would collapse completely. Winning, Tiger Blood, and the most public celebrity meltdown in modern Hollywood. In January of 2011, the carefully balanced illusion finally collapsed. After years of arrests, rehabilitation, and tabloid scandals, production on Two and a Half Men was suspended when Charlie Sheen entered yet another rehabilitation program. This had happened countless times before, but Charlie Sheen was about to do something almost no major television star had ever attempted. Rather than expressing regret, Sheen projected absolute confidence, insisting he had never been better. During one interview, he declared himself to possess Adonis DNA and tiger blood. In another, he called himself a warlock. Then came the single word that would define the entire episode: winning. The phrase spread across television, newspapers, social media, t-shirts, late-night comedy, and everyday conversation, becoming one of the defining pop culture catchphrases of the decade almost overnight. The interviews fascinated psychologists as much as they entertained audiences. Some addiction specialists later suggested his rapid speech, grandiosity, and inflated confidence resembled symptoms associated with stimulant abuse or manic episodes, although none publicly diagnosed him from afar. Others argued that Charlie was deliberately exaggerating his personality because he understood exactly how modern media worked. CBS was forced to halt production on Two and a Half Men, announcing that the remainder of the 8th season would be canceled. The relationship deteriorated almost immediately. Sheen became furious over one of Chuck Lorre's trademark vanity cards, the brief messages shown for a second at the end of each episode. One card appeared to mock the production delays and included a cryptic reference to Chaim Levine, Lorre's birth name. Sheen interpreted it as a personal attack. Within days, his interviews became increasingly hostile. Speaking to TMZ, ABC News, NBC, and radio host Alex Jones, Sheen repeatedly referred to Lorre as Chaim instead of Chuck, often using the name mockingly. He called him a clown, a stupid little man, a turd, and at one point declared, "I violently hate Chaim Levine."
Now I hate them violently, and I will use every soldier in my army.
His attacks became even more theatrical. During one interview, Sheen claimed he had defeated this earthworm with my words, arguing that Lorre could never compete with him because I blink and I cure my brain. In another, he dismissed Lorre as an infected little maggot and accused him of jealousy because, in Sheen's view, audiences tuned in for Charlie Harper, not Chuck Lorre's writing. Sheen also argued that Lorre had become rich because of him, not the other way around. He publicly claimed that he had delivered tens of billions of dollars to CBS and Warner Brothers through 2.5 Men, and insisted the show could not survive without him. The executives rejected the suggestion that Sheen was bigger than the production itself. The feud soon expanded beyond Lorre. Sheen criticized CBS, Warner Brothers Television, executives, producers, and even Alcoholics Anonymous. He repeatedly said he was perfectly healthy and demanded production resume immediately. Behind closed doors, Warner Brothers executives concluded the situation had become unmanageable. They argued that Sheen's increasingly erratic public behavior, refusal to acknowledge his substance abuse, attacks on colleagues, and inability to provide assurances about future conduct made continuing production impossible. On March 7, 2011, the studio officially terminated his contract, citing dangerous conduct, moral turpitude provisions, and repeated violations of contractual obligations. Sheen immediately struck back with a $100 million lawsuit against Warner Brothers and Chuck Lorre, claiming they had wrongfully fired him and cost him future earnings. The lawsuit alleged that Lorre had abused his authority and that the network had breached its contract. Warner Brothers denied those claims, and in September 2011, both sides reached a confidential settlement. 2.5 Men, meanwhile, had already moved forward without its biggest star. When the sitcom returned in September of 2011, Charlie Harper had been written out of the series, and actor Ashton Kutcher joined the cast as billionaire internet entrepreneur Walden Schmidt. Many predicted the show would collapse without Charlie Sheen, yet it continued for 4 additional seasons before ending in 2015. Meanwhile, Charlie Sheen attempted to capitalize on the extraordinary attention surrounding his meltdown by launching the My Violent Torpedo of Truth. Defeat is not an option show. Tickets sold rapidly, but the opening performance in Detroit unraveled just as quickly. Audience members booed, heckled, and eventually walked out as Sheen struggled to provide a coherent show. Similar scenes played out elsewhere, forcing organizers to revise later performances in an effort to salvage the tour. Looking back, perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the entire spectacle was what nobody knew. Every headline focused on tiger blood, winning, lawsuits, interviews, and the firing from television's biggest sitcom. Comedians built routines around him. Social media transformed his catchphrases into memes before the word meme had fully entered mainstream vocabulary. Yet, beneath the bizarre interviews and relentless media attention, Charlie Sheen was carrying a dark secret that would completely change how people saw him. The secret he hid. While the world laughed, during the very period when his life appeared to be unraveling in public, Charlie Sheen received news that would permanently change his future. Around 2011, doctors informed him that he was HIV positive. For the next 4 years, almost no one outside a tightly guarded circle knew. Sheen later described receiving the diagnosis as one of the most devastating moments of his life. In interviews, he recalled sitting with doctors who delivered news that immediately forced him to confront his own mortality, even though modern HIV treatments had already transformed the disease from what had once been considered a near-certain death sentence into a manageable chronic condition. His physician, Dr. Robert Huizinga, later explained that Sheen did not have AIDS and that prompt treatment offered an excellent long-term prognosis. Still, for someone whose life was already consumed by addiction, legal problems, and extraordinary public scrutiny, the diagnosis was yet another crushing burden that he could have done without. Rather than going public, Sheen shared the information only with a small number of people he believed he could trust. That decision, he would later say, opened the door to another nightmare. During his November 17, 2015 interview with Matt Lauer on NBC's Today, he alleged that several people who learned of his HIV diagnosis began demanding money in exchange for keeping it secret. He claimed he ultimately paid approximately $10 million over several years to prevent his confidential medical information from being sold to tabloids. Sheen described one particularly alarming incident in which a woman allegedly photographed his antiretroviral medication in his bathroom and threatened to expose him unless she was paid. "What people forget is that's money they're taking from my children," he told Lauer, explaining that he finally decided to go public because he could no longer live under what he described as constant blackmail. Sheen never publicly identified most of the individuals he accused, and few details have ever been independently verified. However, in 2016, his longtime former fiancée, Scottine Ross, formerly Brett Rossi, became one of several former partners to sue him, alleging he had concealed his HIV-positive status before intimate encounters. Sheen denied her allegations and countersued, arguing she had known about his diagnosis and had attempted to extort him for money. The dispute was ultimately settled out of court. Other former partners also filed civil lawsuits after his public disclosure, several of which likewise ended in confidential or reported financial settlements without admissions of liability. Many believe that the secrecy surrounding his HIV status may have intensified the instability already fueled by addiction. The secrecy finally ended on November 17, 2015. Sitting opposite Matt Lauer on live television, Charlie Sheen quietly delivered 5 words that instantly transformed years of speculation. "I am, in fact, HIV positive." The interview stunned viewers across the world. Dr. Huizinga appeared alongside him, confirming that Sheen had maintained an undetectable viral load through modern antiretroviral therapy, meaning the virus had been successfully suppressed and his immune system remained healthy. Medical experts emphasized that HIV and AIDS were not the same condition. Sheen himself described the announcement as both terrifying and liberating, saying he was finally ending years of fear and secrecy. Unexpectedly, researchers soon discovered that the interview produced measurable public health consequences. Scientists studying HIV awareness found a dramatic increase in internet searches about HIV prevention and testing immediately following Sheen's disclosure. HIV testing across the United States rose significantly in the weeks that followed. Researchers eventually referred to this phenomenon as the Charlie Sheen effect, but the revelation also unleashed a new series of legal battles. Several former partners filed lawsuits alleging that Charlie Sheen had failed to disclose his HIV status before engaging in sexual relationships. Some plaintiffs accused him of exposing them to unnecessary risk, while others sought damages for emotional distress. Sheen consistently denied knowingly infecting anyone and maintained that he had taken precautions. Over the following years, several disputes were resolved through confidential agreements or financial settlements. including a settlement reached in 2022 without admissions of liability. By the end of 2015, Charlie Sheen had survived public humiliation, career destruction, addiction, and one of the most closely scrutinized medical disclosures in celebrity history. But this was only the beginning. The comeback that never fully came. After revealing his HIV diagnosis in November of 2015,
according to People magazine, the 50-year-old actor will reveal he is HIV positive.
many expected Charlie Sheen to engineer one of Hollywood's greatest redemption stories. He had survived public humiliation, addiction, lawsuits, and a medical revelation that dominated international headlines. Hollywood has always loved comeback stories, and Sheen seemed to possess all the ingredients: undeniable talent, decades of name recognition, and a public eager to see what would happen next. Yet, what followed was something far more complicated. Charlie Sheen returned to work. Ironically, his first major attempt at rebuilding his career had begun even before his HIV disclosure. In June of 2012, barely a year after being fired from 2.5 Men, Sheen returned to television in the FX comedy Anger Management. Inspired by the 2003 Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson film of the same name, the series cast Sheen as Dr. Charlie Goodson, a former baseball player turned anger management therapist. The role once again blurred the line between fiction and reality. Audiences were now watching the actor whose own public rage had dominated headlines, playing a professional dedicated to helping others control theirs. At first, the gamble appeared to work. Anger Management premiered to strong ratings, drawing millions of viewers curious to see whether Charlie Sheen still possessed the charisma that had made him television's biggest star. FX employed an unusual business strategy known as the 10-90 model. If the initial 10 episodes met specific ratings targets, the network would immediately order an additional 90 episodes, guaranteeing a total of 100 installments suitable for lucrative syndication. The ratings proved strong enough to trigger that enormous order, making Anger Management one of the fastest sitcoms ever to reach the coveted 100-episode milestone. On paper, it looked like another remarkable success. But appearances were deceiving. While the series reached 100 episodes, it never approached the cultural dominance of 2.5 Men. Ratings steadily declined after the premiere, critics offered mixed reviews, and the show rarely generated the kind of widespread conversation that Charlie Sheen's previous sitcom had commanded for nearly a decade. Industry observers noted that audiences seemed interested in Charlie himself more than in the series he was starring in. The curiosity surrounding his personal life often overshadowed the actual program, making it increasingly difficult for the show to establish an identity separate from its controversial leading man. Then another controversy emerged. This one involved actress Selma Blair, who played Dr. Kate Wales, Charlie Goodson's therapist, professional colleague, research partner, and recurring love interest. From the very first season, Kate had become one of the emotional anchors of the series. Their relationship evolved from therapist and patient into an awkward friends with benefits arrangement before gradually developing into something deeper, with the show repeatedly hinting that the two might eventually become a genuine couple. Much of the second season continued building that dynamic through their joint research project, making Blair one of the sitcom's central characters rather than a supporting player. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. In June of 2013, multiple entertainment outlets reported that Blair had privately complained to producers about Charlie Sheen's work habits, allegedly describing him as frequently late to set and difficult to work with. According to reports, she was not the only cast member frustrated by the delays, but she was allegedly the most vocal. When Sheen learned of the complaints, TMZ and Deadline reported that he demanded Blair be removed from the series. He threatened to stop filming himself if she remained. Some reports also claimed he sent Blair a profanity-laced text message informing her she was finished with the show, although Lionsgate never publicly confirmed those details. The studio issued only a brief statement announcing that Blair will not be returning to anger management and wished her well, while FX declined further comment. Blair herself largely avoided discussing the dispute publicly, and her representatives challenged aspects of the media narrative surrounding her departure. The fallout extended beyond the headlines because it abruptly disrupted the show's storyline. At the time Blair departed, Kate's relationship with Charlie had been developed across more than 50 episodes, and the writers had already planned future episodes centered on their ongoing research partnership. One announced episode, titled "Charlie and Kate Have Sex for Science," was pulled from the broadcast schedule after Blair's exit. Instead of gradually concluding Kate's story over several episodes, the writers quickly rewrote the scripts, explaining that she had accepted a position in India. A new character, Dr. Jordan Denby, played by Laura Bell Bundy, was introduced to replace her. Kate's disappearance felt abrupt because months of character development simply stopped, with no meaningful emotional resolution between her and Charlie. Rather than receiving a farewell, one of the series' principal relationships effectively vanished between episodes. Charlie Sheen later disputed the widespread version of events. During an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno in September of 2013, he insisted Blair had not really been fired. Instead, he claimed her character had already been written out because the creative team wanted to move away from Charlie Goodson's relationship with Kate, arguing that audiences found the romance a little dull and that the series needed a creative reset. Critics, however, noted that this explanation conflicted with numerous earlier reports, including the existence of planned Kate-centered episodes and contemporaneous accounts that Blair's departure had originally been intended to unfold much more gradually before being accelerated after the dispute. Because Lionsgate never fully explained what happened behind closed doors, the precise sequence of decisions remains disputed. When anger management concluded in December of 2014, something unexpected happened. The offers that once flooded Charlie Sheen's agents simply never returned in the same volume. He made occasional guest appearances, appeared in independent productions, reunited briefly with Chuck Lorre in a surprise cameo during the finale of Bookie, and continued giving interviews. But the era in which major studios built multi-million-dollar projects around him had effectively ended. Hollywood, always eager to embrace success but equally quick to move on, had largely shifted its attention elsewhere. Some commentators argued that his reputation had become too unpredictable for major productions. Others believed changing television economics and new generations of stars had simply left little room for another Sheen comeback. Meanwhile, the financial consequences of his earlier lifestyle became increasingly difficult to ignore. During the peak of 2.5 Men, Charlie had earned approximately $1,800,000 per episode, generating hundreds of millions over the course of his career. Yet expensive divorces, legal settlements, child support obligations, years of lavish spending, and mounting attorney fees steadily eroded that fortune. Court filings revealed dramatic reductions in his income compared with his television peak, leading him to seek reductions in child support payments. He also sold several luxury properties, including high-value homes in Beverly Hills, as part of broader efforts to reorganize his finances. The astonishing wealth that once seemed limitless was no longer enough to shield him from economic reality. Perhaps the most significant transformation, however, was not financial, but symbolic. Charlie Sheen had once represented Hollywood excess at its most glamorous. He was fearless, boasted an outrageous lifestyle, and this is what enhanced his appeal. However, by the late 2010s, that image had shifted dramatically. By the time Charlie Sheen turned 60 on September 3, 2025, the days of winning, tiger blood, and public meltdowns were long gone. Instead, he spoke about a reset. Sheen says he has remained sober since December of 2017, crediting long-term recovery with finally giving him stability. He has also said that living with HIV no longer defines his daily life, thanks to consistent antiretroviral treatment that keeps his viral load undetectable. This is what shaped both his memoir, The Book of Sheen, and the documentary aka Charlie Sheen, which revisited decades of extraordinary success, addiction, family interventions, public humiliation, and survival. Critics were sharply divided. Some praised his willingness to revisit painful chapters, while others argued the documentary avoided fully confronting the impact of his actions on former partners and colleagues. Relationships with some longtime collaborators, including John Cryer, remain distant. The young actor who once seemed destined to conquer Hollywood lost fortunes, fame, relationships, and nearly his life. Yet against considerable odds, he is still standing, living, as he now says, simply for the next moment. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Did you like this video? If you did, please consider liking, dropping a comment, and hitting the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on our new uploads. Also, don't miss this video you see on your screen right now. It's truly unbelievable.